All right, today we're jumping into a story that's become one of the biggest urban legends of the 20th century. It's got everything: time, mystery, and a flight that, get this, supposedly came back from the dead.
I mean, seriously, can a plane just vanish and then land 37 years later? It sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But for decades, tons of people have sworn this is exactly what happened to Pan Am Flight 914. So let's unpack this whole crazy story.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the first part of this legend, the impossible landing. I mean, for a plane to reappear, it's gotta disappear first. And the story goes that this totally normal, routine flight just, poof, vanished.
And this timeline, this is really the core of the whole mystery. You've got 1955. A Pan Am flight takes off from New York, headed to Miami, and then just disappears from the radar. And then boom, flash forward 37 years to 1992. An old, random plane just shows up in the sky over Caracas, Venezuela, out of nowhere.
And the way the story tells it, the disappearance was flawless. Like, 1 second, this Douglas DC-4 is on the radar, and the next, gone. You can just imagine the air traffic controllers totally stunned. No mayday call, no warning, nothing. Just radio silence.
So, naturally, search and rescue teams scrambled. They looked everywhere, scouring the ocean, but they came up with absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, not one single piece of evidence that the plane had even crashed. So, eventually, they had to call it. The flight was officially declared missing, presumed crashed. Case closed. A sad but, not unheard of aviation mystery. Or so everyone thought.
Okay, now let's jump forward 37 years. It's 1992. An air traffic controller in Caracas, Venezuela is just doing his job when a voice crackles over the radio. It's a pilot, sounds panicked and confused, flying an old plane that's not on any of the logs, and he says he's on approach to Miami. The problem? He's thousands of miles off course and decades out of time.
So what happens when this mystery plane actually lands? Well, this is where the story goes from just a weird mystery to, potential evidence of actual time travel. The scene that unfolded on that tarmac was supposedly all the proof anyone needed that something truly impossible had just happened.
There were 57 people on that plane. Men, women, even kids. And when they started walking out of this dusty old aircraft, you can bet the people on the ground were just speechless, totally stunned. Everything about this scene screamed time travel. The passengers, dressed in clothes straight out of the 1950s. Their luggage was old-fashioned, and they were clutching these handwritten paper tickets. But here's the really chilling part. None of them had aged. Not a single day. They looked exactly like they would have back in 1955. And this is where the story hits its peak. Ground control gets on the radio and tells the pilot, "Sir, the year is 1992. The pilot supposedly just yells, "Oh my God," fires up the engines again, and just takes off. No clearance, nothing. The plane goes up into the clouds, and then, just like in 1955, it vanishes. Again. I mean, what a story, right? It's a perfect mystery, almost too perfect, which raises a pretty big question. If this actually happened, why isn't it the most famous thing to ever happen? Well, that brings us to the next part of our explainer, a tabloid's tall tale, because the real origin of this story isn't a government conspiracy, it's something a lot less exciting. Yeah, the key to unlocking this whole thing isn't hidden in some secret military base or some weird time vortex. Nope, it was sitting right there on a newsstand.
And there you have it. This headline, this is the very first time anyone ever heard about Flight 914. It wasn't in some official report. It was in a 1993 issue of the Weekly World News.
Now, if you're not familiar with the Weekly World News, let's just say it was a masterpiece of creative writing. This was the paper that gave us stories about Batboy, aliens running for president, and you guessed it, time-traveling airplanes. Their whole goal wasn't to report facts, it was to sell papers by being as entertaining and outrageous as possible. And boy, did they milk this story for all it was worth. They actually ran the Flight 914 story 3 different times over the years. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that the details kept changing. Even the year the plane landed was different in different versions. That's a pretty big red flag that we're talking about fiction, not fact. Okay, so now that we know where the story came from, let's really break down this hoax. It's time to separate fact from fiction and figure out why this amazing story is, well, just a story.
The moment you start checking the actual facts, the whole thing just crumbles. Let's look at the evidence. First off, there are 0 official records, none, of a Pan Am Flight 914 ever going missing in 1955. Second, could it have landed in Caracas in 1992? No way! Pan Am, as an airline, had actually gone out of business in 1991. And that key eyewitness, Juan de la Corte, the air traffic controller, totally made up. Him, his quotes, the photos, all fabricated for the article.
So how did this fake story get so big? Well, you can see its journey right here. It started small as a goofy tabloid story that not many people took seriously. But then, the internet happened. On forums and in chain emails, the story got passed around without its original source. It was just presented as a real mystery. And then came social media, which was like pouring gasoline on the fire. It just exploded, turning a piece of fiction you'd see at the grocery store into a worldwide urban legend.
You know, with every share, every YouTube video, every time someone retold the story, it just added another layer of believability. The fake origin got buried deeper and deeper until, for a lot of people, the story felt more real than the truth. It's a perfect example of how a modern myth is born.
And that really brings us to the most interesting question of all, doesn't it? We know it's all fake, so why do we want to believe a story like this? The fact that it's stuck around for so long says something really interesting about us. These kinds of stories tap into this part of us that wishes the world was a little more mysterious, a place where impossible things like time travel could happen, and where people who are lost could actually come back. So maybe the real mystery isn't about the plane at all. Maybe it's about why we so badly want to believe it's still out there somewhere, waiting for its final landing.